So what you want to be able to do is getting your message out. You want to be able to figure out different ways for you to get your message out one to many. Okay. So I wrote a list of ways that you can do that down, and I think these will really be helpful for you. Today, we are going to talk about creating some leverage in your messaging. And when I talk leverage, I basically break it down to very simple, like I'm a simple guy, right? And that is one to many. So what you want to be able to do is getting your message out. You want to be able to figure out different ways for you to get your message out one to many. Okay, so I wrote a list of ways that you can do that down, and I think these will really be helpful for you. Now, here's the cool thing. We can do a much deeper dive on any one of these. In fact, I'll probably do upcoming episodes kind of diving into each one of these, but I thought it would be good to kind of get an overview straight away. So I'm just kind of start talking about how you can sort of be the center of influence in these environments. And when you're the center of influence, and when I say center of influence, I recognize that the number one fear of people is public speaking. I totally get it. So what I'm going to suggest is that there are ways that you can not be the one that always has to do the talking, but you can bring other people in, give them the platform, simply introduce them and let them do the chat, right? So number one is social media communities. Now, I'm going to just talk about Facebook, but you could do this on LinkedIn. You could do it on a lot of the social media sites, but you could start a community of a group of people that are essentially your ideal clients. But what you want to be able to do is give them a commonality, okay? Now, if your product, good, or service, you're like, well, I'm not talking to businesses, it doesn't really make sense. Find out where there's a commonality and create a community around that. I'll give you an example. I used to have an Amazon product where we sold products to people that owned dogs. It was a pet product, okay? Well, it would have been kind of obnoxious. We're like, go buy our pet spray, our pet odor remover, right? Well, it would have never worked. However, what we did was we created different communities for different dog breeds, right? So people who loved German Shepherds, people who loved Huskies, people who loved St. Bernards, people who loved Poodles, right? And then we were able to build those communities around that, the people that loved those dogs. And then we were able to interject our product into solving some of those solutions. So create Facebook communities. Number two, the easy one is to start a YouTube channel. Right? Here's why I love YouTube so much. I love YouTube so much because number one, it's the second most trafficked website on the planet that's owned by number one, which is Google, right? So if you create video content and you put it up on YouTube, the videos last forever and they become more valuable over time. Which means that if you're doing a video, and let's say you were going to do a Facebook Live, or you're going to do a LinkedIn Live, or you're going to do some video, even if it's a TikTok video, right? Well, at the end of the day, if you put that up on YouTube, just by sheer happenstance, it's going to be seen by a few people at least, but you've only done the work one time. And then you put a link down in the description for how they can contact you with what you call your CTA. Boom. CTA stands, by the way, for call to action. So for example, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see in the first three lines, it's going to say, hey, download our power networking tips at powernetworkingtips.com, right? So by the way, you can do that very easily with your own videos. You put your own call to action in the first three lines of the description. But the key component is that is a platform that will allow you to create leverage. Next up, you could start a podcast. This is actually really easy. It can be really fun. And in fact, you could actually take the podcast, take the audio from the podcast and put it up on iHeartRadio and one of those, a bunch of those sites, and let people download it, listen wherever you get your podcast from. But if you do it on video, you could also then take that video and leverage it again by putting it up on YouTube, right? So start a podcast. Super easy to do. You don't have to be some big, powerful public speaker. Call up somebody that has a little bit of influence or maybe even an ideal client. Get to know them a little bit. Say, hey, let's pop on and I want to do a quick interview. Interview them and then share that out. It's pretty much as simple as that. Obviously, there are some technical things that you can add to it and enhance it. But remember that production will beat perfection every single time. I tell our clients in my mastermind group all the time that the crappiest video done, the crappiest podcast done will always 100% outperform the perfect one in your head, right? So the other thing you could do, and it's so funny because I just redid this last night to be exact, Start a meetup group in your local community for your ideal clients, right? So last night I started a meetup group. I put it out on my Facebook page. I sent it out to an email list. I went to a couple of other meetings throughout the week and I said, hey, I'm going to get everybody together tomorrow night at a craft beer house and we're going to have a chat, right? No joke. I went to the owner of the bar. He was like, dude, you can have the whole private room. It was great. I was like, okay. He's like, well, how many people do you think? I'm like, I don't know, 3 or 4. I mean, hilariously enough, I literally told my nephew he had to come down and I would buy him a sandwich and a beer because he lives across the street from the bar, just because I wanted to make sure there was another body. Well, I was blown away. We had 25 people show up. It was awesome. We had a great time. They all had a great time. I really didn't do any content. I stood up and I said, hey, this is the first one of the month, the first one we've ever done. I want you guys to get to know each other, mix, mingle, shake hands, make sure everybody feels welcome. And we sat there and people were there for an hour past when it ended, just having a good time. Great way to create your own platform, create your own stage. Didn't really have to do a whole lot. Next up is to do, if you want to get your message out to other people's audiences and you do want to do a little public speaking, or maybe you hire somebody to do the presentation for you, is what we like to call pay to play. Pay to play simply means this. There are stages all over the country. There are podcasts all over the country that you could get on as a guest. Now, if that podcaster wants you on as a guest, fantastic. If the person is a producer of an event, sometimes they have the ability for you to sponsor an event, which essentially means you pay to play. You pay them a little bit of money to get up and give your message to their entire audience. Here's the thing. When I say their entire audience, make sure that it's actually your audience as well, meaning your ideal clients, your ideal prospects, the ideal people that you want to be in and around. Now, when you do that, here's what's really cool. Now you are going to start to build up that network. You're going to start building up your own influence. And then you can take that influence to leverage to get better people on your podcast, to get higher influential people. Now, I'm going to give you a little secret in the podcasting world and a little video world. A lot of people, and this is, we teach our mastermind clients this, that if they're doing their podcast, what I want them to do is actually have their ideal client as a guest on their podcast, because they're going to have about a half hour to an hour before they shoot the show to get to know that prospect. Now, when they get on the podcast, they're going to make that prospect look absolutely amazing and awesome. It's a great way to build relationships, build influence, and get your message out one to many. So I hope this helps. I'm so curious if you're willing to go out and try it. If you can think of another way to get your message out one to many, drop it in a comment below. I will respond to every single comment. I hope you're having an absolutely awesome day. Now let's go give somebody else an absolutely awesome day by helping somebody else build their influence. Ciao for now.